Hi, and welcome to St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Napa. We're so glad you found your way to our website. This week we're talking about transformation. We have the great gift of having a baptism on Sunday. Tricia, who's been waiting since Lent to get baptized, finally was able to do so in our virtual service. It was wonderful to be able to participate with everybody watching online and with Tricia and with her sponsor here in the church. Baptism is a wonderful reminder and invitation to all of us to remember what it is that being a Christian is really all about. In the Episcopal Church, we have something called the baptismal covenant. It's a list of promises that we make, and it really outlines what it is that we believe it means to follow Jesus. We've been talking this year about the way of love, which is a way of talking about what it is that Jesus calls us to, the life of love that God calls us to walk. And that way of love leads us to a life of transformation. Sometimes, like in baptism or an amazing moment in our lives, we can feel transformation come to us in something beautiful or amazing, in a mountaintop experience. But for me, I most often experience transformation through difficulty, through times when I've messed up, when I've been brought up short, when I've said something and realized the consequences of that, when I've realized in hindsight that I didn't fully value and appreciate the image of God in someone else. Our baptismal covenant reminds us what it is that we strive for. And after each promise, we say, we will with God's help. The last two promises of the covenant go like this. Will you promise to seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? And will you strive for justice and peace on the earth and respect the dignity of every human being? We will with God's help. These words have been said by Episcopalians in churches all over this country, in the 16 different countries that are a part of our church. These words have echoed since this prayer book came out in 1979, transforming what we know to be our way of love, transforming the heart of our church. Transformation is something that happens to each one of us individually every single day that we choose to follow Jesus. It's not just a choice that we make once, not just a choice to be baptized or to join a church, but rather a choice every single day to continue to seek and serve Christ in all people, to respect the dignity of others, to strive for justice and peace on the earth, to pray, to repent, to connect with others, to speak truth, to tell the good news. This is how we live our lives, but we don't live this life of transformation alone. We don't live it just with us and with Jesus, but in a Christian community. There's so many different ways that we experience transformation, whether as a community in the church or as a wider community, as a nation. I've been thinking so much over the last few weeks as we approach an amazing anniversary on Tuesday, the 18th of August. It will be the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, which gave women the right to vote. And I think about all the transformation that led up to that point, all of the voices speaking truth. From Abigail Adams at the very birth of our country, demanding that women should be treated equally, that women should have the right to vote. Harriet Tubman, in her amazing work, freeing hundreds of slaves and serving as a spy for the Union Army and being the first woman to lead a military expedition in the Civil War. Harriet, through her life, called for women's suffrage, and she died at the age of 91, just 7 years before the 19th Amendment was passed. And yet even after the amendment was passed, which was after World War I, after the Spanish flu pandemic, it doesn't seem all that long ago now when we think that in all those moments of our history, women were not given the right to vote, and that even after that, women of color had to continue to struggle and fight for their right to vote. as oppression and violence at polling places, polling taxes, and other systemic ways of trying to keep them from voting continued to be in place for so long, and in some cases continues today. You see, progress is made in transformation. As we work together, we stand on the shoulders of others that have gone before us and walked this way of love and this way of transformation. And yet we are called, as each successive generation, to add our voice, to add ourselves to the story of transformation. In this particular moment of United States history that we are living in, we are experiencing what is the largest civil rights movement in our history. It is a call to transformation, to each one of us, to listen to the voices of truth as they speak things that we need to hear, that we need to learn. Sometimes it means being brought up short, being willing to recognize that in the past we may have been wrong. In the present, we may be wrong. Following Jesus doesn't mean that we're right. It means that we're committing ourselves to a path of love and humility, being open to what it is that God has in store for us. You know, even Jesus was transformed by the witness of others. This Sunday, we read a story about Jesus encountering a Canaanite woman. This woman was following them and begging that he would heal her daughter, and the disciples tried to send her away. Jesus tried to send her away, and she would not go. And she said, "Please heal my daughter." And you know what Jesus said to her? He said, "I haven't come for you. I've come only for the lost sheep of the people of Israel." And he said, "It's not fair. It's not fair that we should take the food for the children and give it to the dogs." It's just about the worst thing that Jesus said. To look into her eyes and not see the full image of God. And yet, even at that, she did not turn away. She responded to Jesus, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And Jesus' eyes were opened, and he was transformed. And perhaps it was that moment when he began to see that his ministry on this earth was about much more than just the lost sheep of the people of Israel, that he had come for all people. You see, that woman, she saw that in Jesus. She saw him not just as a great healer, but as someone who had come for all. And she was determined to speak her truth. She was determined that she should be seen. Think of the risk that she was taking on, breaking all sorts of social and cultural norms, demanding that a man listen to her, demanding even after she was told to go away, and staying there and speaking her truth. And because of her brave witness, because of her speaking her truth, Jesus' ministry, his idea of who he is and what he is there to do, changes. And he says, "Woman, great is your faith. Great is your faith." And I'm encouraged by this story because if Jesus could get it wrong and be transformed by the witness of another, how much more so might I be able to be transformed? I who get things wrong so much more than Jesus. It's encouraging to me to think that perhaps it's God who sends people into our lives, opportunities to hear and to learn and to be transformed, that we might hear the truth of another, that we might begin to see differently, that we might begin to see as God sees, in the beloved and precious and unique dignity of every human being. My prayer for you this week is that you would lean into this idea of transformation, that you would spend a little time thinking about what it is that God calls you to be transformed in. Perhaps your history of walking with God and the ways that God has already helped you to be transformed, perhaps through the witness and story of others. but what is it right now that God is calling you to take steps forward in learning and being open and being ready to be transformed? In our weekly emails each week, we've been giving you resources, articles and webinars, YouTube videos and books and movies that you could watch, all as part of our series to focus on racial reconciliation, racial justice in our nation, in our community, and in our own hearts, what it is that we have to learn. There are so many resources available to you, not just in the lists that we've provided, but there's so much out there that you can look into, delve into, and begin to learn more deeply. We all have something new to learn. We all are called to do something as we move forward on this journey of transformation, being transformed by action and learning, and then through that transformation, desiring more learning and more action. The way of love is an amazing journey. Come, walk it with us.